When my son Marcus told me he'd found the one, I remember the way his whole face lit up, the way it used to when he was 10 and brought home his first basketball trophy. I'd spent years praying he'd find someone gentle, someone who'd love him not for what he could give, but for who he was. So when he said her name, Jasmine Baker, I smiled, even though I didn't know her. That's what mothers do. We smile, even when a small voice in our chest says, "Wait and see." I raised Marcus on my own after his father left us for a new life in Atlanta. It wasn't easy. 2 jobs, 1-bedroom apartment, and prayers stretched thin across too many bills. But we made it. He became an engineer, bought his own home by 30, and I finally felt like all those long nights counting pennies meant something. The first time I met Jasmine, she had perfect posture and a perfume that filled the room like money. Pretty girl, smart too, a corporate planner, sharp tongue, always smiling like she already knew what you were about to say. She called me Miss Diane, not Mama Diane like most folks did. Maybe she meant it with respect. Maybe not. Hard to tell. After that, invitations to dinner got fewer, calls shorter. Marcus would say, "Mom, Jasmine's planning everything. She's just busy." Busy. That word started showing up everywhere. In his texts, in his voice. Too busy to visit, too busy to call, too busy to be my son. The first hint came when Jasmine's cousin posted their engagement announcement on Facebook, complete with the date and venue. Only problem was, I hadn't heard a single word from my son about it. I stared at the post for a long time, scrolling through hundreds of congratulations from strangers. Then I noticed the caption, "The Bakers are so excited to welcome Marcus into the family. Big day ahead, surrounded by love, the Bakers." No mention of me, not one. I told myself not to take it personally. Maybe it's just an oversight, I said aloud to my reflection that night. The reflection didn't believe me. I tried to call Marcus, but he didn't pick up. Hours later, I got a text. "Hey, Mom, everything's happening fast. Don't worry, we'll fill you in soon." That was in April. The wedding was in May. Soon never came. 3 weeks before the wedding, my friend Carla stopped by. She looked nervous, like she was carrying a secret she didn't want to keep. "Diane, you didn't hear from Marcus yet?" I shook my head. "Well," she said, twisting her purse strap, "my niece works at the country club. The Bakers booked it out for next month, said family only on the list. But she heard Jasmine say something about you not being well enough to travel." My chest tightened. "Not well enough?" Carla nodded. "Said you were recovering from something. I don't know what." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because disbelief has a strange way of sounding like laughter when pain's too deep to reach words. A week later, an envelope showed up in my mailbox. No return address, just Mrs. Diane Wells written in careful cursive. Inside was an ivory wedding invitation, creased, smudged at the corner, and postmarked 2 weeks late. The date was only 9 days away. Someone had delayed it. I held that card like it might burn me. The gold letters gleamed, all elegant and cold. "Marcus Reed Wells and Jasmine Marie Baker request the honor of your presence at their wedding ceremony." My name wasn't anywhere on it, no mention of mother of the groom. Just the Baker's family crest stamped at the bottom. I sat on my couch until the sun went down, reading it again and again. The house felt too quiet. The clock ticked like it was judging me for still hoping. I thought of all the times I'd patched Marcus's clothes, packed his lunches, stayed up through his asthma attacks whispering, "Mama's here." And now, on the biggest day of his life, I was an afterthought, maybe not even that. The next morning, I decided I'd go anyway. Invitation or not, I called the hotel number listed on the RSVP card. "I'm the groom's mother," I said. The woman on the other end hesitated. "Ah, ma'am, that room was canceled yesterday." Canceled? By whom she wouldn't say, just that the family had made new arrangements. I hung up slowly, the world suddenly feeling smaller, meaner. My hands trembled. I thought about calling Marcus, demanding an explanation. But then I remembered the way he'd sounded last time. Distracted, distant, almost coached. Instead, I took out my mother's blue shawl, soft, worn, and smelling faintly of lavender. She'd worn it to every important moment in my life. "Carry your grace like armor," she'd say. "Let it remind them who raised you." That night, I packed it into my suitcase along with the gift I'd been saving, a small gold locket engraved with the words, "Love makes room for truth." If they didn't want me there, fine. I wouldn't come to make noise. I'd come to stand tall, quiet and uninvited, the way a mother always does when the world tries to write her out of her own story. I woke up before sunrise the next morning. The kind of morning that feels too still, like even the wind is waiting for something to happen. My suitcase sat by the door, the blue shawl folded on top, glowing faintly in the dawn light. I'd ironed my dress the night before, a soft, plum-colored gown, not too flashy, not too plain. Just right for a mother who wanted to look proud without being mistaken for desperate. I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marcus as a little boy, running through our tiny yard barefoot, laughing, calling me, "Mama, look." And every time, that memory twisted into another image. Jasmine's face at the engagement dinner. Her smile sharp and polished, her hand resting on Marcus's arm like a claim. The more I thought about it, the more my heart kept asking one question I wasn't ready to face. When did I lose my son? The drive to Atlanta took 4 hours, though it felt like I was crossing years instead of miles. I played old gospel songs on the radio just to keep my emotions from boiling over. Every time I thought about turning back, I remembered my mother's voice. You can't teach people how to treat you if you let them pretend you don't exist. I repeated that line like a prayer. When I arrived, the hotel lobby shimmered with guests in designer suits and dresses. White lilies everywhere. The bakers didn't do anything halfway. That much was clear. I gave my name at the front desk, expecting another "we're sorry" moment. But this time, the young man smiled politely. "Of course, Mrs. Wells, you're under the groom's family reservation." That surprised me. Maybe Marcus had finally realized how wrong this all was. Maybe this was his quiet way of making it right. Then I reached my room and saw the envelope slipped under the door. No name, just a folded note. Inside were 3 words written in neat, unfamiliar handwriting. "Please don't come." No explanation. No signature. Just those 3 words sitting on the white paper like a wound that wouldn't close. I sat down on the edge of the bed and just stared. For a moment, I didn't even feel sad, just numb. I'd already cried enough over this wedding. Maybe my tears were tired now, but the silence in that room was suffocating. It made me realize something painful. This wasn't just Jasmine's doing anymore. If Marcus wanted me there, he'd have called. He'd have stood up for me, and if he didn't, then maybe I had to stop trying to rescue a son who didn't want to be found. I folded the note and placed it gently in my purse, right next to the locket. "You'll see," I whispered. "You'll see who your mother really is, not who they told you I was." That evening, I went out for a walk to clear my mind. The town was buzzing, fairy lights being strung across the street, people laughing near the bistro. I caught snippets of conversation from a group of young women nearby. "You heard about the groom's mom? They said she's not coming. Too much bad blood." No way. Jasmine's family must be relieved. "I heard she's difficult." I stopped walking. My hands clenched around my purse so tight the leather creaked. Difficult. That's the word people use when a woman refuses to bow. I turned away before they could notice me. My eyes stung, but I forced myself to breathe. The humiliation burned deep, not because of gossip, but because somewhere, somehow, my son had let them believe it. Back at the hotel, I called Marcus again. No answer. I texted him, "Baby, I'm in town. Just want to give you your gift before the big day. No drama, I promise. Read at 8:43 p.m., no reply. That hurt worse than any argument could. Because silence, especially from your child, is louder than shouting." I poured myself a glass of water, sat by the window, and looked out at the city lights. From up here, everything seemed peaceful. Small cars crawling through golden streets, laughter echoing faintly from below. But inside me, there was only that hollow ache, the ache of a mother who gave everything, and was now being erased. The next morning, I laid my dress out carefully on the bed. I brushed my hair, pinned it the way Marcus always said made me look, like a movie star. Then I placed the shawl around my shoulders and looked in the mirror, 52 years old. Lines on my face that told stories no one asked to hear, eyes that still carried too much. "Hope, I'll go," I said aloud, staring at myself. "But I'll go as me, not their version of me." I packed the wedding gift, took a deep breath, and grabbed my car keys. When I stepped into the hallway, something in the air shifted. Maybe nerves, maybe instinct. I paused by the elevator and saw a reflection in the mirrored door, a woman watching me from the far end of the hall. Older, elegant, holding a small clutch. When our eyes met, she smiled faintly, almost knowingly, before disappearing into another room. I didn't think much of it then, but later I'd remember her face and realize she wasn't just another guest. The wedding was held at St. Augustine's Chapel, one of those picture-perfect southern churches with white columns and rose vines crawling up the railings. The kind of place meant for glossy magazine photos, not for mothers trying to hide a heartbreak under polite smiles. When the car pulled up, my hands were trembling so badly I almost dropped my clutch. The driver glanced at me through the mirror. "You okay, ma'am?" I nodded, forcing a smile. "Just nervous. My son's getting married today." He smiled back, unaware of the ache behind my words. "Congratulations. Congratulations." That word should have felt like joy. Instead, it landed like a bruise. The sound of organ music floated out through the tall doors. I could already picture it. Jasmine gliding down the aisle, her family front and center. Her smile staged for cameras. I was supposed to be sitting in the second row. Aisle seat, right where a mother belongs. But instead, I stood outside, fingers clutching my shawl, debating whether to walk in or just disappear. Then I thought of my mother again. Her voice always came to me at crossroads like this. "Don't ever let the world tell your child you didn't show up." So I took a deep breath, fixed my shawl, and stepped inside. The church was full, white roses everywhere. The air thick with perfume and whispers. The ceremony had already started. I slipped quietly into the back, praying no one would notice. Marcus stood at the altar, tall and handsome in his gray suit. For a moment my heart softened. That was my baby, my miracle. Then I saw her, Jasmine, radiant, walking down the aisle with her father's arm linked through hers. I smiled, despite everything. Because no matter how cold she'd been, this was still the woman my son loved. But then it happened. Just as Jasmine reached the front, her eyes swept across the pews and landed on me. Her face froze. Then, in the smallest, sharpest whisper, she said, "Thank God she didn't show up." The words weren't meant for the crowd. But I heard them. Clear as thunder, and worse, I saw Marcus hear them too. He turned slightly, his expression flickering with something, guilt maybe, or shame, before quickly looking away. The rest of the ceremony passed like a dream I couldn't wake up from. My ears rang, my chest tightened with every vow, every fake smile, every clink of laughter. I wanted to leave right then, but I couldn't move. I just sat there trying to breathe through the humiliation pressing down on me like a weight. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," the guests clapped and cheered. Jasmine leaned in, still smiling, but her eyes found me again. That time, the smile wasn't kind, it was victory. As soon as the ceremony ended, I slipped out through the side doors before anyone could see me. The cool air outside hit my face, and for a moment I just stood there, tears burning behind my eyes, pride fighting to keep them from falling. I told myself I wouldn't cry. Not here, not where they could see. I walked down the church steps slowly, the echo of laughter following me like a ghost. Behind me I heard cameras clicking, people congratulating the beautiful family. They said it like I wasn't standing right there, invisible, erased. I was halfway to the parking lot when a soft voice called out, "Ms. Wells?" I turned. It was the same woman from the hotel hallway, the elegant one with kind eyes. She was holding a small silver clutch and looking at me like she'd been searching for me all morning. "I'm Aunt Delilah," she said quietly. "Marcus's great-aunt on his father's side. We've never met, but I knew your mama. She was a good woman." Her voice cracked on that last part, and that's when I saw the sympathy in her eyes. "I saw you sitting in the back," she said. "They told everyone you refused to come, that you were too embarrassed." My throat tightened. "Embarrassed?" She nodded solemnly. "They said you'd caused scenes before, and that it was best to keep things peaceful. But I knew something wasn't right. I could tell the moment Jasmine's mama started talking about you." My heart dropped. What did she say? Delilah looked down at her clutch, hesitated, then met my eyes again. She said, "You were the reason Marcus doesn't visit. That you begged him for money, threatened him when he didn't send enough. That you made a fool of yourself." I staggered back a step. "That's a lie." "I know." Delilah placed a hand on my arm. "That's why I wanted to find you. Because if you'd heard what they said inside that church, you'd have walked out like I almost did." For the first time all day, I couldn't hold it together. My lips trembled. "I don't understand, Delilah. Why would they do this? What did I ever do to that girl?" Delilah sighed. "Sometimes, dear, when people come from money, they believe they can rewrite the story. And if they can't erase where someone came from, they'll try to erase the person instead." Her words hit me right in the gut. Because I'd seen that kind of cruelty before, not just from Jasmine, but from the world itself. People who smile to your face and bury you with their silence. Delilah squeezed my hand. "You should see what they've been posting online. I know it's not my place, but you need to see it." "What do you mean?" She opened her phone and held it out. On the screen was Jasmine's cousin's social media story, a photo of Marcus and Jasmine at the altar. The caption read, "Some mothers know when they're not wanted." Below it, a comment. From Marcus. A single heart emoji. My breath caught. The world tilted for a second. "He liked it?" I whispered. Delilah nodded slowly. "I'm sorry, baby." "I really am." I turned away before she could see my tears. The air felt heavy, almost cruel in its stillness. Somewhere behind us, the church bells rang, sweet and hollow. I whispered to myself, "They can laugh at my absence all they want, but they'll remember the day I showed up." Then I started walking toward my car, the blue shawl fluttering behind me like a flag of quiet defiance. I didn't sleep that night, not a single minute. I lay in that cold hotel bed, staring at the ceiling while the memory of Jasmine's whisper looped in my mind like a broken record. Thank God she didn't show up. Her words had claws. They tore through my thoughts, scratching at every memory I had of my son's laughter. His hugs, his old "love you, Ma," and now, even that seemed like a ghost of someone I used to know. My phone sat on the nightstand. Marcus's message still glowing. "Mom, can we talk tomorrow morning?" I wanted to reply. Lord knows I did, but I didn't trust what might come out if I did, whether it would be anger or heartbreak. So I just whispered a prayer instead. "God, if there's truth left in my boy, help him find it. By sunrise." My eyes were swollen from tears I hadn't meant to cry. I put on a simple gray dress, tied my scarf, and decided I'd meet him. Whatever this talk was going to be, apology, excuse, or performance, I needed to hear it. I walked down to the hotel cafe where we'd agreed to meet. It was quiet, the kind of morning where silverware clinks sound too loud, and the smell of coffee feels heavier than comfort. But Marcus wasn't there yet. What was there? However, was Aunt Delilah. She sat near the corner table, dressed in soft cream with pearls at her neck. When she saw me, her face softened with concern. "You didn't sleep either, huh?" I managed a small smile. "You could say that," she gestured for me to sit. "I wasn't sure you'd come back here." I wasn't sure either. Delilah took a slow sip of her tea before speaking. "I thought about you all night, about the way they looked at you in that church. I've seen that kind of cruelty before. It runs deep in the baker's way of doing things." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. "You didn't hear it from me, but Jasmine's mother, Patricia, she's known for controlling everything she touches. When her first daughter got married, Patricia made sure her own name was bigger on the invitations than the bride's." That made me laugh, bitterly. "Figures," Delilah sighed. "And now she's doing it again. She spent months painting you as the problem. Unstable, needy, jealous. Her words, not mine." The sting of those words hit me like ice water. "And Marcus just let her?" Delilah hesitated. "He's not innocent, Diane, but you raised him soft-hearted. That girl and her mother, they knew exactly how to use that." I closed my eyes. "They told people I refused to come. Then they mocked me for not being there." Delilah nodded. "They wanted to humiliate you quietly, make it seem like your fault. That's how people like them operate." I sat there in silence for a moment, stirring my untouched coffee. Outside, a photographer was snapping pictures of guests checking out, all smiles and wedding glow. It made my stomach turn. "Delilah," I said softly, "you mentioned something about them posting things online last night." She sighed. "Yes, you saw one post already, but there's more." She pulled out her phone, swiped a few times, then turned the screen toward me. There it was, Jasmine's mother again. This time, posting a photo of herself with the caption, "Family means knowing who truly belongs." Underneath, comments filled the screen. She raised her daughter right. That groom is lucky to have y'all. Some folks just don't fit in every family. And again, Marcus's name sitting right there among the likes. Something inside me cracked then. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet shattering. Like porcelain breaking in slow motion. I pushed the phone back toward her. "Thank you for showing me." Delilah reached out and touched my hand gently. "Diane, don't do anything rash. I've lived long enough to know the truth always finds its way out." I smiled weakly. "Sometimes truth needs a little push." Just then, my phone buzzed. Marcus. I stood, smoothing my dress, my heart thudding painfully. "That's him," I whispered. Delilah squeezed my hand. "You got this, baby." He was standing just outside the hotel lobby, still in his pressed suit from the night before, tie loosened, looking tired and nervous. When his eyes found me, he smiled that old boyish smile that used to melt my anger when he was 10. But now it just made me ache more. "Hey, Mom," he said softly. "Morning, Marcus." He leaned in for a hug, half-hearted, uncertain. I let him, but I didn't melt into it. I stood still. We sat on the bench outside, sunlight spilling across the marble floor. "I'm sorry," he started, running a hand through his hair. "Everything's been crazy. Jasmine's been under a lot of stress, and I didn't realize the invitation got to you so late." I looked at him. "Marcus, the invitation didn't get to me late. It was held back. Somebody made sure it wouldn't," he froze. "What do you mean?" "I mean your fiancé's family lied about me. About everything." His jaw tightened. "Mom, no, listen to me." My voice trembled, but I didn't stop. "They told people I was unstable. That I refused to come. That I embarrassed you. That's what they said, Marcus. And you stood there and let them." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. No defense ready. "I saw what you liked online," I said quietly. "You can't pretend you didn't know." His eyes dropped to the ground. Shame flickered across his face, quick as lightning. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "To what?" I interrupted. "To humiliate me publicly or to pretend I didn't exist? Which one should I forgive first?" He rubbed his temples. "I didn't think it would matter. Jasmine just wanted peace on her big day. She said," I laughed, a sound sharp enough to make him flinch. "Peace? Honey, peace built on lies is just silence wearing perfume." He looked at me, finally, and whispered, "You're right." And for a moment, I saw my boy again, the one who used to run home to show me his report card, not the man hiding behind someone else's story. I stood, smoothing my shawl. "You know what's funny, Marcus? I didn't come here to fight. I came to bless your marriage. To give you this." I handed him the gold locket. He looked down at it, confused. "It says, 'Love makes room for truth.' You'll understand that someday." Then I turned to leave. By the time I got back to my hotel room, the morning sun was already high and cruel, too bright for the kind of ache I was carrying. I closed the door, kicked off my heels, and just stood there staring at my reflection in the mirror. My shawl had slipped from one shoulder. Mascara smudged under my eyes. A mother who showed up to love her son and left as a ghost in her own story. I wanted to scream, but the walls felt too thin, like they'd listen and whisper my pain back at me. So instead, I did what hurt people do when silence becomes unbearable. I opened my phone, and there it was, a notification. "You've been tagged in a photo." It was from Jasmine's cousin, Tiffany, the same one who'd posted before. The photo showed Marcus and Jasmine, arms around each other, framed by that white chapel arch I'd stood outside of. But the caption this time, "A flawless day surrounded by the people who truly matter." And right underneath, another comment from Patricia, the bride's mother. Some absences speak louder than words. The likes poured in, heart emojis, clapping hands, even laughter, and right there in the middle again, Marcus's name. He'd liked it. Again. My hand went numb. The phone slipped a little. I sat down on the edge of the bed, my throat burning. I tried to tell myself it didn't matter, that maybe he hadn't read the caption, that maybe he was just scrolling carelessly, but deep down, I knew better. People read when it's about their mother. I scrolled further, and that's when I saw it, a photo I hadn't taken, but recognized instantly. Me standing in the back of the church. Someone had snapped it, my figure blurred in the last pew, half hidden in shadow. The caption read, "Some people just don't know when to let go." Over 200 comments, laughter, sarcasm. She really came after saying she wouldn't? Poor Marcus, imagine dealing with that drama. Some mothers just want attention. My fingers trembled so badly I nearly dropped the phone again. I could feel my pulse in my ears, heavy, relentless. It wasn't just embarrassment anymore. It was betrayal. Public. Deliberate, vicious betrayal. I don't know how long I sat there scrolling, reading words that cut deeper than any knife. But I do know the exact moment anger finally burned through the pain. It was when I saw Jasmine's own comment under that photo. We all have to protect our peace. Even from family. Protect our peace. As if I were chaos. As if I hadn't spent half my life sacrificing every ounce of peace I had to give Marcus one. My vision blurred. My jaw tightened. For the first time since I'd arrived, I felt something fierce replace the heartbreak. It wasn't just hurt anymore. It was purpose. I put the phone down, stood in front of the mirror again and stared at myself. "Let them laugh," I whispered. "But I will not be erased." My mother's blue shawl shimmered faintly in the sunlight, catching the light like armor. And that's when I noticed. One corner was torn slightly, just a thread dangling. I traced it with my finger and smiled sadly. "Guess you've been through battles too, huh?" Then my phone buzzed again, a text. Not from Marcus, from an unknown number. "You don't know me, but you deserve to see this." Attached was a link to a private video, a clip uploaded just hours earlier. The thumbnail alone made my stomach twist. Jasmine in her wedding dress, standing beside Patricia, champagne in hand, talking to one of her bridesmaids. The person filming was clearly doing it secretly. The camera angle slightly tilted, the audio muffled, but I could hear enough. I told him his mom said she didn't want to come. He believed me instantly. Poor boy's too easy. Men always are. Laughter, more laughter. She'll find out eventually, but by then, we'll be in Bali. Let her stew in her pride. I pressed pause. My hands were shaking so badly the phone almost fell. Every word sliced deeper than the last. They hadn't just lied to me. They'd manipulated my son, my child, and turned him into a pawn in their little game of social status and control, and someone had filmed it. Someone who clearly didn't agree with what they'd done. I replayed the clip 3 times, memorizing every word, every sneer. Then I sent the link to my email. Evidence. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but I knew I'd need it, because suddenly, my grief had found a target. By late afternoon, I finally stepped outside. I needed air. Aunt Delilah was waiting in the hotel lobby again, sitting in that same corner seat, a newspaper folded neatly on her lap. She looked up as I approached. One look at my face, and she said softly, "You saw it, didn't you?" I nodded. My voice came out hoarse. "Whoever filmed that, they knew what they were doing." Delilah's lips pressed into a thin line. "Sweetheart, people like Jasmine always forget one thing. Someone's always watching, and someone always has a conscience." She handed me the newspaper. "Look at the front page." Right there in bold print was a headline. "Exclusive venue faces financial misconduct allegations connected to the Baker's Events Company." I blinked. This is Jasmine's family?" Delilah nodded slowly. "They own that company. Word is they've been double-billing clients for years. That wedding yesterday could be their last big show before it all unravels." I leaned back in the chair, clutching the paper. My mind raced. The perfect family. The spotless reputation. The class they'd weaponized against me. And it was all built on lies. The next morning, the city felt different. Still bright. Still busy, but colder somehow. like the air itself had learned their secrets overnight. I didn't sleep much again. But this time it wasn't sadness that kept me awake. It was focus. I kept replaying that video in my mind. Jasmine's smug laughter, Patricia's voice dripping with superiority, and the truth that had finally torn through the pretty curtain they'd hung over my son's eyes. Now, I wasn't just a hurt mother, I was a woman with proof and patience. Around 8 a.m., my phone buzzed. "Marcus, Mom, can we have breakfast? Jasmine and I just want to clear the air." I stared at that message for a long moment, my thumb hovering over reply. Clear the air. They wanted peace, now that they believed I'd stay silent. They had no idea how quiet a storm could be before it breaks. "Sure," I typed back. "Name the place." They chose the Rosefield Terrace Cafe, one of those upscale spots where everything smells like lavender and money. I arrived 10 minutes early, not because I was eager, but because I wanted to watch them arrive. I sat at a table near the window, hands folded over the napkin, pretending to read the menu, and then I saw them. Marcus first, dressed casual but sharp, his hand resting lightly on Jasmine's back. She walked in glowing. Like yesterday's lies had been wiped clean with champagne. Her engagement ring caught the sunlight like a weapon. They spotted me and waved. Jasmine's smile was polite, too polished. Marcus's was strained, the kind a man gives when he's hoping everyone will just get along. "Mom," he said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. I let him. "Morning, baby." Jasmine sat across from me, placing her purse delicately beside her chair. "You look lovely, Mrs. Wells. I hope you slept well." I smiled back, as well as someone can after being called a liar in front of half the internet. Her smile faltered for a second, just a second, before she recovered. "Oh, that? You know how people twist things online. I told my cousin to delete that post, yet it stayed up all night." Jasmine's fingers tightened slightly around her coffee cup. Marcus glanced between us, tension flickering in his eyes. "Mom," he started, "we just wanted to talk, clear up any—" "Marcus," I interrupted softly, "do you know your wife told people I refused to come to your wedding? That I was unstable?" His mouth opened, but Jasmine spoke first. "Oh, Mrs. Wells, that was a misunderstanding. My mom thought—" "Your mom thought?" I leaned forward slightly. "Or you told her that?" The cafe went quiet around us, or maybe the world just faded out for a moment. I could see the color drain from her face. Marcus sighed, rubbing his temples. "Please, let's not do this here." "Why not?" I said. "You did it online." Jasmine's polite mask began to crack. Her voice dropped lower. "Mrs. Wells, I understand you're upset, but I didn't come here to argue. We're starting our honeymoon tomorrow. I just want everyone to move forward with good energy." "Good energy?" I laughed quietly. "You humiliated me, lied about me, turned my son against me, and you're talking about energy?" Marcus flinched. "Mom, no, Marcus. You need to hear this." I turned to him fully, my voice trembling but steady. "When you were little, I taught you one thing above all. Never let anyone else tell your story. Yet here you are liking posts that bury mine." His eyes filled with guilt. "Mom, I didn't realize—" "Didn't realize?" I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. "Then let me help you realize." I hit play. The sound of Jasmine's voice filled the cafe. I told him his mom said she didn't want to come. He believed me instantly. Poor boy's too easy. Her own words, her own laughter. The blood drained from Marcus's face. His fork slipped from his hand and clattered against the plate. Jasmine froze, her lips parted, her fingers curling into the napkin. "How did you get that?" She hissed. "Doesn't matter how," I said quietly. "What matters is that you said it." Marcus stood up, his chair scraping back sharply. His voice was low but shaking. "Jasmine, tell me she's lying." Jasmine's eyes darted between us. "Marcus, I was joking. It was just girl talk. You know how people— You lied to me." His voice cracked mid-sentence, half fury, half heartbreak. "You lied about my mother, and you let everyone think she abandoned me." People had started watching from nearby tables, murmuring. Jasmine reached for his hand, but he pulled away. "Marcus, please," she whispered. "You're overreacting," he laughed bitterly. "Overreacting? You dragged my mother's name through the dirt for clout." I stood then, slowly, calmly. "I'm not here to destroy your marriage, Marcus. I just wanted you to see what kind of woman you married. Then I turned to Jasmine. And as for you, you wanted peace? You'll find none in lies. They rot everything they touch, including the people who tell them. Jasmine said nothing, just sat there trembling, her perfect world beginning to crumble under the weight of her own words. I placed a 20 on the table, picked up my purse and looked at my son one last time. When you're ready to talk like a man instead of her echo, you know where to find me. And with that, I walked out. The sunlight hit me hard as I stepped onto the street. But for the first time in days, I breathed easy. It wasn't victory I felt. It was release. A few blocks away, I stopped at a park bench, sat down, and finally let myself smile. Small, tired, but real. That girl had played with fire. She just didn't know yet that I wasn't the kind of woman to burn quietly. By the next morning, I'd already forgotten what peace felt like. It was one of those gray Atlanta mornings where the sky looks bruised and the air feels heavy with gossip. And this time, I wasn't imagining it. The whole city was whispering because the headlines had finally dropped. I was sitting in my hotel room, half-dressed and sipping bitter coffee when the message came through. Same unknown number. A link and 3 words. Told you so, I clicked. Breaking news. Bakers. Event empire under investigation. Embezzlement allegations surface. Below it, a photo of Jasmine's parents, Patricia and Charles Baker, all smiles and pearls, framed by flashing cameras. The article detailed how their luxury event company had allegedly inflated invoices, overcharged vendors, and funneled money through fake accounts. And worse, Jasmine herself was listed as Junior Financial Coordinator. My chest tightened. I set the cup down before it slipped from my hand. The story was everywhere. Social media, local radio, even morning television. The same people who'd mocked me online were now turning on the Bakers, like vultures. Comments poured in under the article. They looked too clean, to be honest. Explains why their daughter acts like she owns everything. Karma works fast. For once, I didn't need to defend myself. The truth had started speaking on its own. Around noon, there was a knock on my hotel door. When I opened it, Marcus stood there, disheveled, eyes bloodshot, suit wrinkled like he hadn't slept. "Mom," he said quietly. I didn't say a word. I just stepped aside and let him in. He dropped into the chair by the window, rubbing his face with both hands. "It's all true. Everything in that article. They've been under investigation for months." Jasmine swore it was just rumors. I folded my arms, keeping my voice even. "And you believed her?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, because I thought I was protecting her, protecting us." "From what?" I asked. "The truth?" He winced. "Mom, don't." But I wasn't here to comfort him. Not this time. "Marcus, you stood by while that girl and her family dragged me through the mud. You let them call me unstable, poor, desperate, all while they were stealing money from people." He looked up at me, eyes red and raw. "I know, and I hate myself for it." Silence hung between us. Not cold, not angry, just heavy. Like both of us were realizing how much had been lost that no apology could fix. Finally, he whispered, "She told me things, Mom. She said you never liked her because she wasn't from our side of life. That you were jealous, that you'd try to ruin our wedding." I stared at him for a long moment. Then I said quietly, "And you believed her over the woman who raised you?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The shame on his face said it all. He took a deep breath. "Mom, I saw that video again this morning, the one you showed me." I can't get her voice out of my head. "Good," I said softly. "Maybe now you'll understand that love without truth is just manipulation, wearing perfume." He nodded, swallowing hard. "She's been begging me to delete the videos and posts, to stand by her. She says the media's lying, that her parents are innocent." "And what do you believe?" I asked. He looked at me, really looked at me. And for the first time in years, I saw my son again. "Not the man molded by someone else's lies. I believe I was blind," he said. "And you were right." He stood and started pacing, running a hand through his hair. "Mom, they've frozen the Baker's accounts. And apparently, some of Jasmine's own bank records are being reviewed. There are transfers, big ones, from her parents' company into a joint account she opened months ago." I frowned. "Joint account? With who?" He hesitated. Me, my stomach turned. So your name's tied to the investigation? He nodded slowly, guilt washing over him. Yeah, my lawyer called this morning. I could be dragged into this if I don't act fast. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then I walked to my purse, pulled out a folded envelope, and placed it on the table. I was hoping I wouldn't have to use this, I said quietly. He opened it. Inside were bank printouts, statements I'd found months earlier from an old emergency fund account Marcus had created for me years ago, back when he first got his job. Except now, the account was nearly empty, and every withdrawal led back to Jasmine's business account. He froze, color draining from his face. Mom, where did you get this? I check my accounts, I said simply. Always have. I just didn't know it was you authorizing those transfers, or at least that's what the system said. He shook his head, horrified. I didn't. Jasmine must have... He stopped mid-sentence, realization hitting him like a train. She forged my name. I leaned back, watching him silently as it all sank in. The lies, the manipulation, the money. It was all connected. Jasmine hadn't just wanted status. She wanted control. Finally, Marcus looked up at me, voice cracking. Mom, what do I do? I walked to the window, pulling the curtains open. The city glowed beneath us, sharp, unforgiving, honest. You do nothing, I said softly. You let the truth do what it does best, unravel everything built on lies. He nodded slowly, tears welling in his eyes. I don't deserve your forgiveness. I turned back to him, my voice trembling but firm. Maybe not, but I raised you to face what you broke. So fix it, with truth this time. He left not long after, shoulders heavy, the weight of his choices finally pressing down. I watched him walk out of the hotel lobby, head bowed like a man walking through the ashes of his own making. And for the first time since the wedding, I felt something close to peace, not because everything was fixed, but because the mask had finally slipped. Jasmine and her family had built their empire on lies, and Marcus had built his marriage on theirs. But the thing about lies is, they eventually collapse under their own weight. When that message came through, check your old email. From your husband's lawyer, I felt a chill run down my spine. My late husband, Robert Wells, had passed 12 years ago. He wasn't perfect, but he'd left us something, a modest home, a pension, and savings that helped Marcus through college. Back then, the lawyer told me everything was settled. No disputes, no surprises, but suddenly, I wasn't so sure. I opened my old laptop, the one with a sticky keyboard and a screen that flickered when it was tired, and logged into the email I hadn't touched in years. Dusty digital cobwebs of my old life, and there it was. An unread email dated 3 years ago. Subject line: clarification request regarding trust allocation. Urgent. From David Conroy. Ask him, my husband's old attorney. My heart started pounding. I clicked. The message was formal but direct. Mrs. Wells, I've been contacted by a third party claiming power of attorney on your behalf, requesting the transfer of residual trust funds, $48,000, from your late husband's estate into a joint account under your son's name. Please confirm in writing that you approve this action. If I don't hear from you within 14 days, I'll proceed under the assumption you consented. It was signed and dated 3 years ago. My mouth went dry. I never saw this email, never approved anything. That meant someone had impersonated me. Someone had taken Robert's remaining trust money, my last connection to him, and transferred it to Marcus's account, under forged permission, and now that same account was tied to Jasmine's transactions. I leaned back in my chair, feeling the room spin. She hadn't just stolen my dignity or my son's loyalty. She'd reached into my dead husband's grave and stolen from him too. My phone rang. It was Aunt Delilah. Baby, I just saw the news. You holding up? I hesitated. Delilah, I think I found something worse. I told her about the email, about the trust, about the signature that wasn't mine. There was a pause. Then Delilah's voice turned sharp. You listen to me, Diane. Don't you delete a single thing. Don't reply, don't forward, just print. That's evidence now. I don't even know where to start. You start with the lawyer, she said. He sent that email. He can tell you who contacted him. And something tells me that third party was wearing designer heels and a practiced smile. I called Conroy's office. The assistant recognized my name right away. "Mrs. Wells," she said cautiously. "Yes, I remember that case. Mr. Conroy handled the Wells Trust years ago. The woman who reached out said she was your financial power of attorney." My stomach turned. "What was her name?" She clicked through her records. Mrs. Jasmine Baker." I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tight. "And you transferred the funds?" "Yes, ma'am. The authorization came from your email. We even verified the signature. It matched previous files on record." Matched. Because she'd likely copied it from old estate documents. I forced my voice to stay calm. "Do you still have that authorization letter?" "Yes, on file. Would you like a copy?" "Oh, yes," I whispered. "Please. Send it to this address." When the email came through, I opened it carefully, my heart pounding in my ears. It was on my old letterhead. My signature forged perfectly, except for one tiny detail. The dot over the I in Diane was missing. Robert used to tease me about that, said I dotted my I's like little hearts. Whoever copied it didn't know that. And that tiny detail was going to save me. I called Marcus. My voice was cold, steady. "Son, you need to come to my room. Now." He arrived 20 minutes later, still looking wrecked from the day before. I didn't waste time. I slid the printed letter across the table. "Recognize that account number?" He frowned, scanning it. "Yeah. That's the joint account Jasmine opened. She forged my signature to access your father's trust. Transferred the money right into that account. Your name's on it too, which means legally you're tied to it." His face went pale. "Oh my God. You wanted to know what kind of woman you married, Marcus?" I said softly. "This is her. And if I hadn't checked my old emails, she'd have stolen everything your father ever left for us." He stared at the papers in horror, then at me. "Mom, what do we do?" I exhaled slowly. It was the first time he'd said we in months. "I've already called the lawyer," I said. "He's forwarding the records to investigators. And when they follow that paper trail, the forged documents, the transactions, the trust withdrawals, it won't be my name that burns." Marcus nodded slowly, his eyes glistening. "She told me you were trying to take money from her family. And the whole time, she was taking it from ours," I finished. He dropped into the chair, shaking his head. "I thought marrying her was the best thing I'd ever done." I looked at him gently. "No, baby. It's just the loudest mistake you ever made." That night I sat by the window again, watching the city lights flicker like scattered candles. Somewhere across town, I imagined Jasmine trying to spin new lies to her parents. Reporters, maybe even Marcus, but this time, her words wouldn't hold, because now, truth had a body, printed, signed, time-stamped, and when morning came, it would be wearing her name. I didn't even make it to breakfast before the storm began. The first call came from Aunt Delilah. She didn't bother with hello. "Turn on Channel 7, baby. Right now." I did, and there it was, the headline scrolling in bold red across the bottom of the screen. "Baker family scandal deepens. Daughter's prenup and forgery allegations surface." My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. On screen, a reporter stood in front of the Baker's mansion, lights flashing behind her. "What began as a financial misconduct case has now escalated," she said crisply, as sources confirm that newlywed Jasmine Baker Wells allegedly forged documents connected to her mother-in-law's trust fund. Investigators say both her and her husband's names appear on joint accounts under review. And then, the photo, the same one from the unknown number. Jasmine and her mother sitting with two men in suits. The caption, "Exclusive, secret prenup." Signed without groom's consent. I sank slowly into my chair. It was surreal, watching the same people who'd called me difficult, unstable, unwanted now being dissected on live television. But what struck me most wasn't satisfaction, it was silence. The kind of silence that comes right before thunder breaks. My phone buzzed nonstop, messages from old friends, neighbors, even Carla. "Lord, Diane, you see this? You were right all along. She's trending, girl, for all the wrong reasons." The internet was ablaze. People dug up Jasmine's old posts about class and boundaries, flooding them with comments, boundaries between her and other people's money. Guess Karma RSVP'd to that wedding too. And Marcus? He hadn't called, not yet, but when the knock finally came, I knew it was him. He looked 10 years older than he had 2 days ago. Shirt untucked, tie missing, face pale from sleeplessness. I opened the door without a word. He stepped inside slowly, as if afraid the truth might be waiting in the hallway to hit him again. "Mom," he said, voice hoarse, "I don't even know where to start." "You can start," I said gently, "by telling me you finally see her for who she is." He nodded, running both hands through his hair. "I can't believe this. The news, the prenup, the lawyer said my name's on every account she used. They think I helped her. Do they have proof you did? No, but they have her signature next to mine on every transfer. She forged them, just like she forged yours." I studied his face. "And the prenup?" His voice broke. "It says if we divorce within the first year, everything I own, my house, my savings, even my car, goes to her family's company. She told me it was just a standard wedding contract." My stomach turned. "And you signed?" He nodded miserably. "I trusted her." "Baby," I said softly, "you didn't trust her. You loved her, and that's what she used against you." He dropped into a chair, burying his face in his hands. "Mom, they're calling me to testify. The feds are involved now. They want to know if I was aware of the transfers. If I helped hide anything." I walked over, placed my hand on his shoulder. "You tell them the truth, Marcus. Every last bit of it. And you show them this." I handed him the folder I'd been keeping, the printed emails, the lawyer's statement, the forged letter missing that tiny dotted I. He looked up, eyes wet. "You kept all this?" I smiled faintly. A mother always keeps the receipts. By noon, the story had spread nationally. CNN, BuzzFeed, the Atlanta Tribune, even TMZ, every outlet was carrying the same headline. "Bride accused of forging mother-in-law's signature. Family empire under federal investigation." Every channel replayed. Jasmine's wedding footage, the laughter, the toasts, the perfect smiles, and then they cut to the courthouse gates, where reporters shouted questions at Patricia Baker as she hid behind sunglasses and a scarf. "Mrs. Baker, did your daughter forge her mother-in-law's documents? Did you know about the missing trust funds? Is your company insolvent?" She said nothing, but the camera caught the tremble in her lips. I sat on the edge of my bed, watching the chaos unfold. The same way they once watched me walk out of that church in humiliation. I didn't need revenge served. Cold. It was being broadcast live in high definition. But I wasn't done yet. I picked up my phone and called Marcus's lawyer. "I have additional proof of forgery," I said. "Original estate documents with my real signature. The missing dot over my I, it'll prove every copy she used was fake." The lawyer paused, then said quietly, "Mrs. Wells, you may have just given your son his freedom." That night, as darkness settled, I took one final look at the locket I'd given Marcus, the one that said, "Love makes room for truth." It felt heavier now. Like it carried not just love, but legacy. My husband's savings had been stolen, my name dragged. My son deceived, but somehow, through the lies and laughter, truth had clawed its way through. And this time, it was shining bright enough for the world to see. Cliffhanger. End of part 9. My phone buzzed one last time before I turned in for the night. A new message from that same unknown number. "She's not going down alone. Tomorrow, she's calling a press conference, and she's naming you." I stared at the screen, pulse quickening. So Jasmine wasn't done fighting yet, but neither was I. If she wanted a war in public, then I'd give her one, with truth as my witness. The next morning, my phone lit up before sunrise. News alerts, texts, missed calls, Jasmine Baker. Wells was live on television. I sat up slowly, heart steady, mind sharp. This wasn't panic anymore. It was the clarity that comes after a storm. When you've been broken once, you stop fearing the next crack. The reporter's voice was urgent. In a shocking twist, Jasmine Baker Wells, daughter of Patricia and Charles Baker, has called a press conference this morning at the family estate. Sources claim she intends to set the record straight. Set the record straight. That meant one thing. She was going to lie again. But this time, she was doing it with the whole country watching. When the camera panned to her, I almost laughed. She looked perfect, of course. Silk blouse, hair smoothed, tears in her eyes right on cue. Beside her stood her mother, Patricia, clutching tissues like a stage prop. Jasmine began softly, voice trembling just enough to sound believable. This has been the most painful week of my life. I've been accused of things I did not do. My husband and I are victims of misinformation. My mother-in-law, Diane Wells, has been manipulated by false evidence, and I pray for her healing. I nearly choked on my coffee. Healing? She wasn't just lying. She was rewriting reality again, right there under studio lights. The camera zoomed in as she dabbed her eyes. Those documents were fabricated. I loved Marcus. I never forged anything. Mrs. Wells has been struggling since her husband's passing, and I only wanted to protect her from financial harm. Patricia nodded beside her, murmuring agreement. A perfectly choreographed scene, mother and daughter playing saints in silk. I turned off the TV. I didn't need to hear more, because I already knew something Jasmine didn't. The truth was now too loud to bury. That unknown number, my silent messenger, had sent another file that morning. An audio clip, Jasmine's voice, clear as a bell. If the money's gone, I'll just say she transferred it to herself. Who are they going to believe? A grieving old woman or me? I replayed it once, twice. The voice was unmistakable. And the timestamp? The day after my husband's trust had been drained. Proof, unfiltered, unedited, undeniable. By noon, Marcus called. His voice was strained but resolute. Mom, I'm heading to the investigators. They want full disclosure of everything. Accounts, transfers, recordings. They've got subpoenas for the Bakers' financial records. Good, I said. Bring this too. I forwarded the file, the audio clip, the forged authorization, the letter missing my dotted I. He paused before hanging up. Mom? Yes, baby. I'm sorry you had to fight this alone. I closed my eyes. I wasn't alone. The truth has its own way of showing up, right when liars think they've won. By the afternoon, it all began unraveling live. Reporters who had praised Jasmine's composure just hours earlier began backpedaling, as the FBI confirmed that new evidence contradicts Mrs. Wells's statements. The clip I'd forwarded made its way to the press within the hour, and by evening, every major network was playing it. I'll just say she transferred it to herself. Who are they going to believe? Jasmine's voice echoed through living rooms across America. Cold, arrogant, self-incriminating. The same face that once smiled down the aisle was now plastered across headlines. Audio leaked. Jasmine Baker caught plotting cover-up. Marcus called again that evening. His tone was flat, stunned. They arrested Patricia. The company's being seized. Jasmine's next. I stayed quiet. The silence was heavy, holy. Mom, he said finally, how did you get all this? The video, the audio, the emails? I smiled faintly. Let's just say conscience has a funny way of finding me. Someone from the inside couldn't live with what they saw, he exhaled shakily. I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself. Then don't, I said softly. Just learn. Guilt fades, but wisdom, that sticks. That night I sat by my window again, same as always. But the city didn't look cruel anymore. It looked honest. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, in emails, in paper trails, in recordings made by people who finally decide to stop pretending. I thought about Jasmine. The way she'd looked at me in that church, whispering, thank God she didn't show up. Well, I had shown up, just not the way she expected. When dawn came, it wasn't the light that woke me. It was the weight, the kind that sits in your chest even when the worst is supposed to be over. Truth might have won, but it hadn't finished speaking. That last message, the deposit, the lawyer's name, sat in my mind like a riddle that wouldn't rest. Why would David Conroy, the man who'd handled my husband's estate, who had gone silent for years, suddenly reappear and quietly return the money Jasmine stole? There was only one way to find out. I called his office first thing. The same assistant answered, the one who'd helped me days ago. Mrs. Wells, Mr. Conroy's expecting you, expecting me. Those words carried more weight than she realized. The drive across town felt like a pilgrimage. Every red light gave me time to think. About Marcus. About Jasmine. About the way betrayal doesn't come all at once. It comes in pieces. Smiles first, silence later. By the time I reached the law firm, I'd already decided something. This wasn't going to end in shouting. This was going to end in truth. David Conroy looked older than I. Remembered. Thinner. The kind of tired that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from knowing too much, Mrs. Wells, he said, standing. Thank you for coming. I almost didn't, I replied. Then I saw 48,000 reasons why I should. He smiled faintly. Guilty, weary. You deserve an explanation, I sat. Start talking, he folded his hands. I handled your husband's trust, as you know. After Robert's passing, there were residual funds that weren't transferred. Small, but significant. I was supposed to contact you, but before I could, someone reached out claiming to act on your behalf. The signature matched, the paperwork looked clean, and You sent it to Jasmine, I finished. He nodded. Yes. And when the investigation began this week, I realized what she'd done. I went through the old authorization letters, compared them to Robert's archives. That's when I noticed the inconsistency. Your handwriting, the dotted I. So you put the money back? I did, quietly. It wasn't mine to hold, and it sure wasn't hers to steal. I leaned back. And you didn't tell the investigators? I did, he said softly. Yesterday. You'll be hearing from them soon, but there's something you need to know before they do. He reached into his briefcase and slid a folder across the table. Inside were printed emails, hundreds of them. All from Patricia Baker's account. At the top of one, Groom's mother's trust access. I scanned quickly. My throat went dry. Patricia had orchestrated the entire scheme. She'd contacted Conroy's firm under Jasmine's alias. She'd planned the transfer, and she'd kept copies of every document. Insurance, prenup drafts, even estate maps, just in case things got messy. The last email was dated just 2 weeks before the wedding. If she shows up, I'll make sure she never has access to anything again. The old woman's name won't matter when this is done. Old woman, that's all I was to them. An obstacle. A name on paper, but they'd forgotten that paper cuts deep, too. I looked up at Conroy. You kept all this? I did, he said. And I'm giving it to you first. You deserve to see it before it hits court. I nodded slowly, holding the folder like it was glass. Then something inside me, quiet, controlled, powerful, clicked into place. This ends today, I said. When I arrived at the courthouse later that afternoon, I didn't come alone. Marcus was there, suit pressed. Expression hard, reporters lined the steps, shouting questions as cameras flashed, and right in the middle of the chaos, Jasmine, perfect hair, trembling hands. A defiant tilt to her chin that almost made me pity her. Almost. She froze when she saw me. The noise around us dimmed for a moment. The world shrank to just the two of us. Mama Wells, she said softly, voice trembling. Please, you have to believe me. Stop. I lifted my hand. Don't call me that. She blinked. I didn't mean for any of this. Didn't mean? I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. You meant every word when you lied. Every post, every whisper. You stole my husband's memory, my son's trust, my peace, and you did it with a smile. Tears filled her eyes. I thought I was fixing things. Patricia said. I know what Patricia said. I leaned in closer. And you know what I said? God don't sleep, her lips quivered. I'm going to lose everything. Baby, I said, straightening. You never had it to begin with. You borrowed what wasn't yours. Love, trust, reputation, and the bill just came due. Inside the courthouse, the air buzzed with reporters and murmurs. The Attorney General's office filed charges against Patricia and Jasmine that afternoon. Forgery, fraud, embezzlement, obstruction. The Bakers' empire collapsed in real time, and as their lawyers argued and cameras flashed, I sat quietly in the back row, hands folded, shawl over my shoulders, calm as a prayer. For once, no one laughed at my tears, no one whispered my name like an insult. They said it with respect. When the hearing adjourned, Marcus found me. His eyes were wet, but not with shame this time. It's over, Mom, I smiled softly. Almost, he frowned. What do you mean? I looked toward Jasmine and Patricia, now surrounded by their own lawyers and flashing lights. They taught me something, I said quietly. Some people don't break until they see who's still standing when the dust clears. He followed my gaze, then nodded. You're standing, Mom. Yes, I said. And this time they'll remember it. By the time the verdict came, dawn was only a few hours away. I hadn't slept, not because I was afraid, but because peace, when it finally comes after a storm, makes too much noise inside you to rest. The morning light poured through my hotel curtains, soft and gold, as if the world itself was exhaling. I watched the city below, reporters setting up, courthouse steps crowded again, microphones pointed like weapons waiting for confession. I'd been humiliated there once. Today, I'd walk in with my head high. Marcus met me in the lobby, eyes red but clear. His voice was quiet. They'll read the verdicts at 9. I nodded. How are you holding up? He took a deep breath. Better than her. We didn't need to say her name. Everyone in the building already knew it. When we stepped outside, cameras turned, voices shouting, Mrs. Wells, any words for your daughter-in-law? Marcus, are you standing by your wife? He stopped for a moment, looking at them, then at me. And for the first time his voice didn't shake. I'm standing by the truth. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with tension. Jasmine sat at the defense table, hands folded tight, wrists shaking. Gone was the polished grace, the confident posture. The pearl earrings she wore at her wedding were missing. The sparkle had left her eyes. Beside her, Patricia stared straight ahead, lips pressed together like she was holding back a scream. When the judge entered, everyone rose. My knees trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the gravity of watching years of deceit crumble into dust. The judge spoke slowly, clearly. After review of the evidence, including digital correspondence, video and audio recordings, and verified financial transfers, the court finds the defendants, Patricia Baker and Jasmine Baker Wells, guilty on all counts of fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. The words landed like thunder. Gasps rippled through the room. Patricia buried her face in her hands. Jasmine just stared, her expression hollow, stunned, as if she'd only now realized that the world she'd built on lies had finally caught fire. Marcus closed his eyes, tears slipping quietly down his cheek. I reached over and took his hand. Let it go, I whispered. It's over. When the session adjourned, reporters swarmed again. Questions, flashbulbs. Chaos. But all I heard was the sound of Jasmine's voice. Soft, broken, behind me. Mrs. Wells. Wait, I stopped, turned slowly. She stood there in handcuffs, escorted by officers. Her mascara streaked, her composure gone. Please, she whispered. I didn't mean to hurt him. I studied her face for a long, quiet moment. The girl who once whispered, "Thank God she didn't show up," now stood before me, begging to be seen. You didn't just hurt him, I said softly. You hurt yourself. You tried to build a life on borrowed kindness, and it came due. Her lips trembled. I thought if I made him hate you, he'd love me more. Tears stung my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. That's not love, baby. That's control dressed as affection, and it never lasts. The officers led her away. Patricia followed, silent. And for the first time since the wedding, I felt something real, not vengeance. Release. Outside, the air smelled of rain. A storm was rolling in, quiet but sure. Marcus stood beside me, staring at the courthouse steps like he didn't recognize the ground anymore. I don't know how to fix all this, he said. I turned to him. You don't fix it, son. You live through it. You carry the lesson, not the shame. He nodded slowly, wiping his face. Then he reached into his pocket and held out something small, the gold locket I'd given him before the wedding. I kept it, he said, even when she told me to throw it away. I smiled softly. I knew you would. That evening, the story broke nationwide. Truth wins, Baker scandal ends in conviction. My name wasn't buried anymore. It was printed, bold and clean. Diane Wells, the mother who fought back. Messages poured in. Strangers writing things like, "You remind me of my mama," and "You gave me courage to stand up." I didn't reply to any of them. I just sat on the porch that night, shawl around my shoulders, listening to the rain tap against the window. There was peace in the sound. Not the fragile kind, but the earned kind. The next morning, Marcus stopped by. He'd shaved, dressed neatly, his eyes softer than I'd seen in years. "Mom," he said, "I'm thinking of leaving Atlanta. Starting over somewhere quiet." "Good," I said. "Start where nobody knows her name." He nodded, then smiled faintly. "You're coming to visit, right?" "Maybe," I teased, "if you remember to send the invitation this time." We both laughed, the kind of laughter that carries forgiveness inside it. It's been 6 months since the trial. 6 long, quiet months where the world went back to its usual rhythm, and I finally learned how to live without listening for the next blow. Sometimes I still wake up expecting the phone to buzz with new gossip, new betrayal. But all I hear now are birds in the oak tree outside my window, and the soft hum of peace finally earning its place in my home. Peace. Not the kind you pray for in chaos, but the kind that shows up uninvited when truth's finished doing its work. Marcus visits every Sunday now. He helps me in the garden, trimming roses and pulling weeds. We don't talk about Jasmine much anymore, though sometimes her shadow lingers between us, like a stain that time hasn't fully washed out yet. But then, he'll do something small, refill my tea glass without asking, fix a loose gate hinge, or laugh at something simple, and I'll see my boy again, not the man who lost himself trying to love the wrong person. Last week, he brought me a box. Old photos, wedding pictures, little fragments of life we'd almost forgotten. "Found these when I packed up the house," he said quietly. "Didn't want them to end up in storage." I opened the box slowly. Inside were photos of his childhood, birthdays, graduations, Sunday dinners, and at the bottom, one I didn't expect. The wedding. Jasmine's face had been cut cleanly from it, torn out like a chapter no one wanted to reread. But Marcus's smile was still there, and behind him, blurred but visible, was me. Sitting quietly in the back pew, half in shadow, blue shawl over my shoulders. For a long time, I just stared at it. That day had felt like the end of everything. But now, looking at that picture, the tears, the silence, the heartbreak, I saw something else. A beginning I didn't know was waiting. I put the photo on my mantle, next to Robert's picture. 2 frames side by side, the man who taught me to stand tall, and the son who learned how to rise again. When I dust them, I whisper the same thing every time. We made it, not because life became easy, but because the truth finally had a home. The world hasn't forgotten the Bakers. Their empire collapsed like a house built on sand. Patricia was sentenced to 8 years. Jasmine 4. The company dissolved. Their mansion sits empty now, quiet, overgrown, the windows boarded like tired eyes. Sometimes I drive by it on my way to church. Not to gloat, just to remind myself what happens when pride becomes a religion. You can spend your life painting over cracks, but the rain will always find its way in. I started writing again. Nothing fancy, just journaling, storytelling, small reflections. People from my church keep telling me to publish them. "You've got wisdom, Diane," they say. "You should share it." Maybe one day I will. But for now, it's enough to know that my story, our story, didn't end in bitterness. It ended in truth, and that truth became my freedom. The night after the trial, a reporter asked me how it felt to see Jasmine fall so far. I remember my answer like it was yesterday. It doesn't feel like watching someone fall. It feels like watching myself stand again. That's all it ever was. Not revenge, not punishment, just a mother reclaiming her dignity. Tonight the house smells like lavender and baked bread. My hands ache a little, the way they always do when it rains. But there's warmth in every room again. I light a candle by the window, one of those soft, flickering ones Robert used to tease me for buying in bulk. Outside the world feels clean. The air smells like second chances. I sit in my favorite chair and look at that wedding photo one last time. Marcus's smile, my shawl, the faint blur of a mother who refused to disappear. And I realized something I never understood back then. That moment wasn't the day they erased me. It was the day I learned how to let the world see me, not loud, not vengeful, but present, unbroken. I close my eyes and whisper a prayer, not for punishment, not even for forgiveness, but for wisdom. Because that's the one thing betrayal always leaves behind, the kind of wisdom that only comes from surviving it. When I open my eyes, the candle flame dances in the glass, glowing against the photo frames on the mantel. I smile softly and whisper, "The truth showed up late." But it showed up in time. And with that, I finally let the past rest.